Thank you, Ranking Member Brown. Senator Warren.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. And I want to say I very much appreciate Senator Braun holding this hearing and advancing this important idea. For individuals who are experiencing a devastating diagnosis, the promise of a new therapy or a cure provides hope in a profoundly dark time. And that's why I have long described federal support for medical research as one of the best investments that our nation can make, and why I've introduced legislation to ensure that we fully invest in medical breakthroughs. I want to, if I can today, talk about just a slightly different part of what happens in the drug approval process that I'm concerned about. I want to talk about how we get research from the lab to the pharmacy. And one of the key parts of that, as many of the people in this room know, is clinical trials. Once a promising therapy is identified, pharmaceutical manufacturers have to test the drug for safety and effectiveness, which involves enrolling patients in clinical trials. Patients place enormous trust in the people running clinical trials, which is why all research involving human subjects in the United States must be approved by institutional review boards, or IRBs. Professor Fernandez-Lynch, you lead work on the quality and effectiveness of IRBs. Can you just say a little bit more about what the job of IRBs actually is?
Of course. Thank you, Senator, for the question. IRBs have been required to review nearly all federally funded research and federally regulated research for several decades now. And their responsibility is to protect the rights and welfare of people who participate in studies by making sure that the risks and benefits of research are appropriately balanced and that there's adequate informed consent. They prevent ethically problematic research from proceeding, and they also help make sure that the science is strong, because when people are giving their time and energy to participating, that's an important element of trust, and they shouldn't be exposed to unnecessary burden and risk. But then IRBs also have a very important responsibility to facilitate high-quality research and to promote ethical research to answer questions that will benefit patients and society.
All right. So as I understand this, if a clinical trial can't answer the questions it sets out to study or doesn't properly communicate the risks of the study to the people who participate in it, then it is the job of an IRB to step in and keep patients safe. But rapid consolidation and private equity ownership of IRBs has raised some serious questions about whether these boards are leaving vulnerable patients exposed to unnecessary risks. Now, while most IRBs are affiliated with universities, IRBs that are not associated with any institution, they're known as commercial IRBs, are reviewing a larger share of drug clinical trials. And according to a recent GAO report, despite representing just 2% of the review boards, these commercial IRBs now review over half of studies involving investigational new drugs, and 92% of them are reviewed by just 2 private equity-backed companies. So the GAO reported that private equity-backed IRBs, I'm going to quote here, are beholden to their clients or equity holders. In other words, the people who put the money up. Professor Fernandez-Lynch, what are the risks that this creates for clinical trial participants?
Thank you, Senator Warren, and I very much appreciate that you pushed the GAO to examine this issue. I wasn't surprised by their finding that we still lack meaningful measures of IRB quality. This is something that has come up time and time again. And the lack of our ability to assess quality meaningfully makes it hard to comparatively assess these different types of IRBs, which is a problem that I'm working on in my own research. One challenge and concern about private equity ownership and profit-oriented goals in the IRB space is that it creates a primary emphasis on speedy approvals of proposed research and keeping the sponsor happy. And that emphasis on speed also kind of trickles down from the private equity IRBs to the university IRBs who have to compete with them. Now, of course, speed can be a very good and important thing when we're talking about research. We want high-quality research to move quickly. But focusing on speed can also inhibit deep attention to ethical concerns, and it can also limit the focus on maximizing scientific quality and really just approving science that is good enough, kind of meets the floor of regulatory requirements, rather than making sure it is maximally valuable. And so I think that's a primary concern here.
So I appreciate you raising this because I just want to make sure we get this right. The GAO found that an emphasis on profits can lead private equity-backed IRBs to rubber stamp reviews of drug clinical trials and focus less on potential harm to research subjects. And while HHS and FDA are responsible for inspecting IRBs to ensure that participants are protected, the number and frequency of these inspections has been steadily decreasing. So HHS and FDA need to step up their oversight efforts in this area, and that includes clarifying what it means for an IRB to be working effectively, something that these agencies have never done despite decades of requests, so that clinical trial participants have complete confidence in the scientific integrity of the trials that they join and feeling certain that these have been fully vetted. So that's my concern in this space and why I wanted to raise it. I want to say again, thank you to Senator Braun for holding this hearing. I look forward to continuing to fight alongside you for patients with rare and progressive diseases. We need to do better in this space. Thank you.